Welcome to Council of Geeks. My name is Nathaniel Wayne, and I am joined by Paul Scavitto and Ryan Daly. We have all seen Batman v Superman. We're going to talk a little bit about the movie and a lot about what happens next. Paul, I believe you're going to have the differing opinion because mine was some good parts, but it's a mess of a film. Ryan's was
hated it.
Yeah. So, Paul, I'm going to actually yield the floor for a little bit and let you give your thoughts on the movie, and then we'll beat you.
I was in the theater, and I was trying to set myself up for as negative a viewing experience as I possibly could. While I was watching the film, I kept waiting to hate it, and I didn't.
Oh, yeah. I should mention, spoilers for this thing. It's been out long enough, we're just going to talk about it. So
You're talking about the spoiler where Bruce Wayne's mom is shot.
I know, I had to warn people before we got there.
Oh, right, and the boat sinks in the end. This is Frank Miller's Batman. Or that the audience need to accept that this is not the Batman and Superman that we know and love from the regular comics. This is how Frank Miller would write these characters.
So you're accepting the movie on its own terms?
Yes.
Okay.
We need to go to what my... And please feel free to review my utter hatred of... Superman Return. Man of Steel. The reason I hated that movie was I would argue that Superman does not show up in that film. I would argue that Superman does show up in this movie.
Where?
So in this movie, we get to see him doing some things that I need Superman to do. He is working for the Daily Bugle as Clark Kent.
Daily Planet.
Planet. Did I say Bugle?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we fix that in post?
No.
Nope.
He's in love with Lois Lane. How did those things happen? I don't care, right? And so I am happy to see him in those roles. We also see him in many scenes, I would argue, acting heroically and selflessly. I would argue that I saw, in a lot of ways, Superman being Superman.
Can I just interject?
Yep.
I saw Superman go through the motions of being Superman with no soul of Superman anywhere. Because if I look at Man of Steel, and I look at his conversation sitting down with Lois, explaining that the S is his family crest, and that it means hope, and that I saw the soul of Superman in that scene in Man of Steel. I did not see a lot of the behavior of Superman in that movie, but I saw the soul of Superman in that scene. In this movie, I saw the actions of Superman and none of the soul.
What movie are we talking about?
I should back up a little bit and say that I don't recommend this movie to anyone.
Of the three of us, the one who's defending the movie still won't recommend it. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Well, share with Nathaniel your analogy that you told me.
So
You're based on your expectations and what you got.
So it's kind of like having a giant monster behind you, and you're sort of backing up, and you're really afraid it's about to bite you on the back of the neck or the head, but instead, it nuzzles you a little. It's still a monster, and it's still awful, right?
But it didn't maul you to death.
It was like a kind of like thing going on back there.
There's the imposing threat. You cannot move. You cannot do anything sudden.
And you really shouldn't look at it directly.
Right. And you would not recommend that experience.
No. But
But it didn't tear me to shreds.
And
hooray!
And the nuzzle was nice. Right? So and here's the nuzzle. Ben Affleck is the nuzzle. And
Hashtag Ben Affleck is the nuzzle.
Ultimately, my problem with this movie it is just objectively badly made. It is a poorly assembled film. I lost count of how many times we jump into the middle of a scene with no establishing shot. So I don't know where we are, when we are, why we are here. So maybe the 3-hour cut will make it flow better, but at this point I don't care. I'm too pissed.
I predetermined I would hate this movie 2 years ago. But I expected to hate it because of the way it showed Batman and Superman. The movie surprised me in that what I hated about the movie were the things that Nathaniel was talking about.
Yep.
The movie was bad. It was badly made. The script was a mess. The editing was all over the place. The decisions and the characters didn't make sense.
I actually love these characters. I grew up with these characters. I think most of us did, right? And so I am grasping at any kind of straw I can
coming off of this, and actually even partly because of this, I am excited for a Wonder Woman movie. I know you don't want to see the Batman movie, Ryan, but I am excited to see this Batman get a solo movie. Yep. And I'm still excited for Suicide Squad. Yep. I'm intrigued by Cyborg. But my excitement for the other things, I do not feel the need to defend this movie to justify my excitement for the rest of this universe.
Warner Brothers originally announced 10 movies from their DC Comics universe slate between 2016 and 2020. Basically 2 a year for the next 5 years. When this thing was met with a critical just hatred and vitriol, a lot of people think, okay, are they going to respond? Well, it had a pretty good opening weekend. It had a really good opening weekend. Everyone's like, it's a record-breaking opening weekend. It came out in March. Yeah. Movies don't make records in March, so it didn't have a competition. But it has plummeted, and this movie might not make $1 billion, which is a big deal. And when you factor in all of the costs and the margins, if Warner Brothers makes profit from this, it's going to be a narrow margin, and they've got to recognize that. Now, what it appears that they're doing is they're not backing off their cinematic universe. They've actually announced 2 more movies at some point in the next couple of years. They haven't said what those movies are, but they're doubling down on their DC Comics universe, on their Lego franchise, and on the Harry Potter spin-off, Magical Beasts and Where to Find Them. And what they're going to do is their smaller independent projects that made Warner Brothers a name and made them an awards caliber quality or commodity, those movies are going to get dropped. In fact, there was already a news story today of like a pretty high caliber, like expected movie got dropped by Warner Brothers, and Netflix has picked it up. So Warner Brothers wants to be in Disney's game, which is make a buttload of money.
Yeah.
So,
and I also don't know that they need to spend $400 million on the next one either.
Well, I mean,
and I don't think they're going to have
the next one is Justice League.
Well, see, and that's the thing. So from here, we're going to talk about mostly what comes next and what's the impact of this thing. Now, Justice League is the immediate thing, and pretty much anything else you can hinge your hope on. Well, it's a different creative team. Justice League is not. I think Warner Brothers initially blew off the critical response when they saw the opening weekend numbers. Mm-hmm. Then the second weekend took a nosedive, and it was a big drop, and they had no competition in the second weekend. It would have been one thing if there was, if like Batman vs. Superman had come out the weekend before Civil War, and then Civil War cut into it the second weekend. That would justify that drop. Nothing like that came out in the second weekend and still had a huge drop.
Yep.
So when they saw that, I think they are panicking slightly. The thing starts shooting in a week. Right. They're not going to pull the director. But, and Ryan and I had started talking about this before, they have done something, because I have no doubt that at this point, as you said, Warner Brothers is doubling down on this universe.
Right.
So they still are banking a lot on this series of films. I think if they have any doubts about anything, it's Zack Snyder specifically right now.
Rightly so.
But they're stuck with him for Justice League. Now, more recently, I don't know when he came on board, but fairly recently added to the crew of Justice League is George Miller as a producer.
George Miller, who directed
Mad Max Fury Road and was supposed to direct Justice League about a decade ago. Mm-hmm. He is now attached as a producer, and my suspicion is that he is going to exert a certain amount of creative leverage, and he's basically going to be asked to kind of guide Zack Snyder, so Zack Snyder is not just doing his Zack Snyder thing.
Well, even Man of Steel, I would argue, you felt a little bit more of Christopher Nolan's influence on Man of Steel.
Okay, yeah, on Man of Steel.
On this one, not at all.
But Christopher Nolan wasn't involved in Batman v Superman. This was all Snyder. So I have a feeling that George Miller may be a little bit like, say, when Spielberg was producing stuff in the 80s, and even though he wasn't directing, you still felt his hand in it. Sure. I think Warner Brothers is counting on George Miller to kind of buoy Justice League a little bit in that fashion.
I think Suicide Squad has some potential to do really, really well. Like, really well. Is going to be a lighter, funnier film. In contrast to this movie.
I think marginally.
I think it will be more fun. It will still be dark.
It'll still be dark, but it has color in it.
Most of the production was done while Batman vs. Superman was being planned. I think Warner Brothers has this kind of collective vision that is a dark vision even Wonder Woman, which is the third movie coming out in the slate, it's a period piece, and all the footage looks like it's almost sepia gray tone.
I also think it's a silent film.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
Now that Superman's dead, spoiler, do you think that they will have him resurrected at the beginning of Justice League, at the end of Justice League, or will they just let him stay dead?
They're not going to let him stay dead.
Well, I know he will come back eventually. Do you think he will come back for Justice League, or will they wait and pull him for something else?
No, he'll be back for Justice
So
League.
Justice League is a two-parter.
Yeah.
So, when you say Justice League, do you mean the first part?
I was gonna say, if you think he's coming back, which half do you think he's coming in?
So, like, do you think, like, the first movie would be, like, a search for Spock?
For my money, first movie is just assemble the League. Oh crap, it's not enough, and then Superman shows up at the very end of the first half.
Based on what Warner Brothers and what Zack Snyder has appeared to be doing, which is just taking whatever has been popular and whatever has sold well, there is a growing concern or a speculation that looking at Batman's weird vision of the future, where there's the Omega symbols of Darkseid and there's parademons flying around, and Superman is some sort of psycho killer with his own little army. If that is true, a lot of people suspect that Darkseid will resurrect Superman as his own agent, and we will get sort of a Batman-Superman war like in the video game and comic series Injustice: Gods Among Us. I hate that idea, and I'm like 99% sure it will happen. Because, that's the state that these movies have left me in. Maybe they'll get Josh Trank to do the sequel.
So, thoughts on The Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg?
Aquaman did not get me excited for Aquaman movie. He looked kind of dumb.
Here's the thing. I thought he actually looked cool, but he literally did nothing. Like, I saw him floating in the water, and I practically said out loud, "You gonna do something?
Right.
Or you're not gonna do anything." Okay.
I thought he was like the guy cleaning the tank. And like they just caught him like on camera and he's like I actually didn't even see the Flash one. I think
You blinked and you missed it.
Yeah. So hipster Flash.
I did not like either of those. The Cyborg one surprised me. I was actually impressed by that. Like, I felt like it's a long time we're spending watching this guy scream on the table with the guy who created the Terminator Cyberdyne system, now creating another one. It's like, that's
a bit of metacasting I actually kind of like.
It was too, and I was actually okay. I was, and I kind of completely forgotten about it, but I was like, you know what? I would actually like to see something done with Cyborg in this universe, and if they do it as a Frankenstein story, then this might kind of be a cool thing. But it was just like at some point I was like, wow, he's screaming a lot. We've been spending a lot. I'm like, how much time are we spending on this whole sequence? And like, I really hope the next thing she opens up is like a video of like the panda sneezing. I was like, that would kind of bring this back together.
I think the Cyborg one is the one they put the most effort into. I think because they knew they had to, because nobody, aside from actual comic book readers, knows who Cyborg is.
Right. I will say none of them made me excited for those future movies.
Okay.
No.
I mean, the Cyborg one maybe a little bit, because I had no expectations for it. But I was like, okay, I guess this is a real thing. If I separate myself, I'm like, okay, maybe they'll make an interesting Cyborg movie. But Cyborg has never even been a solo agent. He's always been part of the Teen Titans, or now more recently the Justice League in the comics.
Yeah.
He's not somebody that he doesn't have a solo story. He doesn't have an origin story.
He doesn't really have a rogues gallery of his own.
And actually, his origin story is what we saw in that 90-second clip. I want to see a good Wonder Woman movie, so I will see that. I want to see a good Aquaman movie, so I will hold my breath, no pun intended, and go to the theater to see that Aquaman movie. But I don't know that I will see an Aquaman movie in that one. I think I'll see Namor the Submariner.
Yep.
Is the fact that Batman, at the very least, he made a conscious decision, I will kill Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So does that create a problem with the fact that he hasn't killed the Joker?
Yeah.
Well,
I was going to try and argue against it, but...
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah. Is it just a numbers game? Are we rationalizing that the Joker could kill 1,000 people?
Sure.
And Superman could kill 1 billion?
Right.
I mean, I guess the question is, when they get to the Batman solo movie, are they better off trying to answer that, or are they better off ignoring that question altogether and just being like, please just accept this movie on its own terms. Let's not talk about
They're
that.
going to ignore that question. I will say, for the first time in a movie, and I'm talking about the Nolan films here, I did actually see Batman have a plan before he went in to fight someone, like a real plan that wasn't just punch guy in the face.
Right.
Which was my major criticism of the Nolan films, was Batman just showed up and beat up people. And
The plan did devolve into he pulled a bathroom sink off of the wall and hit him with the sink.
so
There was a plan before that, but I think I'm tapped out. I don't know if you have any more questions, but
No, it is exhausting to talk about.
okay, I do want to mention this though. Like, I do love these characters. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, these are characters. I love them more than any Marvel superhero or villain. By a wide margin, I do. But the Marvel movies haven't let me down yet. They haven't all been good. I will grant you they haven't all been good. But they haven't disappointed me to the extent that 2 DC movies in a row have, with Man of Steel. And, no, I'll go beyond that. Green Lantern, Jonah Hex, Man of Steel, and now this one.
Right.
I don't want this anymore.
You guys look beaten down. So I think we'll wrap up there. So this is your chance to plug. Who's plugging? What you plugging?
All right, I'll do it first. I've got a number of podcasts that are all available on the Fire and Water Podcast Network. Secret Origins Podcast, which is about the Secret Origins comics published by DC in the 1980s. Give Me Those Star Wars, which is about Star Wars movies, memorabilia, pretty much anything. Check out the latest episode. It's about the teaser trailer to Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, and Power of Fishnets, which is about the DC characters Zatanna and Black Canary. You can also find some of my work at risingsuncomics.com. My Pet Ninja, I am the creator and writer of the webcomic My Pet Ninja, and Paul and I co-created the webcomic Red and Green. Both are available at risingsuncomics.com.
In addition to working on Red and Green with Ryan Daly, I am also the lead writer on a book by Rising Sun Comics called Armadillo Justice, Space Armadillos Fighting Space Ants set in the American Midwest. It's the book you didn't know you needed to read.
Okay then. So thanks for joining me, guys. I'm sorry to push you through what I pushed you through. You both just really look awful at this point. If you're watching this video, you can see a longer, more or less uncut version of the same conversation, and you can hear that on the Council of Geeks podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, this council is adjourned.
Hashtag Ben Affleck is the nuzzle.
Let's make that a thing.